Injuries have taken over the Minnesota Vikings. We finally got news on J.J. McCarthy, and it wasn't good. Then we got news on Jordan Addison, and it wasn't as bad as we initially thought. All of that and more, plus some interesting things from joint practices with the Cleveland Browns. We're going to talk about it all here on the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
That was a fun little graphic. Welcome to the Real Forno Show. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, is producer Dave. And we have Cheddar joining the show here, sleeping next to me instead of the normal Odie. Poor guy is not feeling so good, so he gets to hang out with Dad. Welcome. A lot of interesting things happening over the course of the last 24 hours. As you guys probably saw, we did a show pretty quickly after the news that J.J. McCarthy is going to have surgery on his meniscus. Well, that surgery happened today, and they determined that a full repair was necessary, and they decided to end his season right then and there. Not great, not preferable, but it's one of those things where it kind of is what it is. And if you're going to have a season-ending injury, a torn meniscus that can be fully repaired is about as good as it's going to get. It's not a torn ligament that's got structural integrity issues. It's not a hurt neck. It's not a snapped bone. All injuries suck, but this is about as good as you're going to get considering. Sorry.
You want me to say something other than it sucks today? The air in the balloon was all full on Saturday and Sunday as we saw the future of the Minnesota Vikings. And then today we get... And then, of course, Jordan Addison goes down on a contested catch, gets carted off. We're fearing the worst. What's it going to be, a foot amputation? What's going on? We originally thought, oh, no, it's an ACL. Well, then Addison is reported at the end to be walking, or after practice, he was seen by Ben Gessling hobbling off on a set of crutches and with a boot on the ankle. Now, does that mean it's a serious injury? We don't know. It still has to be investigated according to Coach Kevin O'Connell, which means it's got to be MRI, X-ray, whatever they're going to do, and we'll find out how serious it is. Could it be a high ankle sprain? Looks like it. Low ankle sprain? Doubtful. He would have been hobbling around with tape, tape that sucker up. But we'll find out. Could there be more damage? Let's pray not. But today was rough. And then, of course, Thayer Thompson was down on the ground for a long time, too. We haven't heard if that resulted in a injury as well. Not that Thayer Thompson is as important to the Vikings winning as Jordan Addison is. But it's been a deflating day. And many fans like myself are going, what do we have to do to have this stop?
Yeah. I don't know. Kill the boogeyman? The problem is with this stuff is there is really no link. There's no link to J.J. McCarthy injuring his meniscus. There's no link to that and Jordan Addison suffering a presumed high ankle sprain today during joint practice, which we'll talk about. There's no link between these and Teddy Bridgewater almost having his leg explode at TCO Performance Center. There's no link to any of this. The Teddy Bridgewater one, I think, actually happened in Winter Park. But there's no cohesive link other than it's the Minnesota Vikings. They even changed head trainers. They've changed head trainers twice over the past 3 years. Eric Sugarman was, and then they changed to, I think his name was Uriah, and now it's Tyler Williams. It stinks. It stinks. There's really no other way to frame it. The Vikings have gotten unlucky. Some have been calling it a curse. I'm not willing to do that because for me, a curse has to have an origin story. It can't just be, a bunch of bad things happen. Can you hear Odie, by the way?
Yeah, I can hear Odie. But we do have an origin story for the curse. It's the 69 NFL championship trophy. And as I told Rhino today, we need to assemble some sort of Mission Impossible team, go up to Green Bay and steal that trophy back.
Wait, steal it back?
Yes. You can't tell me you haven't heard the story. After we won the NFL championship in 1969, before we went to the Super Bowl, the team was on the bus on the way back. They stop at a gas station to take a break, get refueled, and all that stuff. And supposedly the trophy was taken in, shown, and then it was left in the bathroom. And the bus took off with everybody on board. And the owner of said gas station took the trophy, and then we find out a few years, however many years later, it's sitting in the Green Bay Hall of Fame room, whatever, is where it's physically located. And that's a trophy that traveled with each NFC or NFL champion. So the last NFL champion is the Minnesota Vikings. They should keep that. That should be theirs now because there was no NFL championship after that. And I don't remember the name of the trophy, but it's a famous trophy. But it's sitting in Green Bay. And supposedly that offended the NFL gods so much. That's what's caused the 0 for 4, the 98, 2000, 2009, 2017, and of course, this season, when we finally get what seems like a young franchise quarterback, and he will still be young and franchise next year. That is the supposed curse. And because we lost that championship trophy. Now, our buddy and pal, Luke Braun, tweeted today, so the Vikings have drafted 5 quarterbacks in the first round. 2 got career-ending knee injuries. One's career is defined by repeated injuries. The latest one got a season ender in his first preseason game. And the other one is Christian Ponder. Now, you tell me it's a fluke? Run those odds. Those odds have to be astronomical. And you're on mute. But that's okay. I like
Sorry,
I'm trying
to avoid the Odie noise because there's not a whole lot I can do with it. Yeah, I'll be honest, I'd never heard
says bullshit. It may be bullshit, Aaron. But like I said, run the odds. That's the origin of the Minnesota Vikings curse.
I had never heard that as an origin story. I'd never heard the story.
I'll send you links to all sorts of articles on it.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah, that's wild. Well, maybe there is, because I've been having that discussion with my wife for a while that I don't believe that there's a curse because there's no origin story. I'm like, well, we have to prove an origin story. And if that story is as true as you laid it out to be, which considering it's coming from you, I have no reason to not believe you other than the 2 messages you sent me earlier today. It's maybe we are cursed and we have to find a way to beat it. I mean, just in our lifetime, the Red Sox defeated the curse of the Bambino, and then the Chicago Cubs defeated the curse of the Billy Goat.
And how many years did that take? It just gives you hope that we can defeat the curse.
Well, they had at least 1 titles before the curse went into place. The curse of the Billy Goat didn't come around until I think it was like 1946. The curse of the Bambino was obviously 1918. Was it 1918 or was that the last time that the
there.
Red Sox had won a world title? Because
That
I
was
think
somewhere around in there. It's when they traded,
Mhm.
the Bambino to the Yankees.
I'd have to look up the nuance differences there, because the Cubs had won since 06, and then I think it was 46 or 48 when the curse of the Bambino went into place. And let me tell you, watching that game against the then Cleveland Indians, now Cleveland Guardians in 2016, it's still one of the best baseball games I've ever watched, both from a quality standpoint, a historical standpoint. It is up there with the 1991 Game 7 with the Braves and the Twins. It's up there with 75 Game 6 with the Red Sox and the Reds. And we are now a baseball podcast, but the whole reason why we bring up those is because if the Minnesota Vikings truly are cursed, like everybody is kind of alluding to and wants to believe, because then at least it can give us an explanation, a reason to kind of correlate, then it can give us a little bit of a sense of peace.
Well, T-Bass doesn't think there's a curse, but it's ever since we moved indoors. Well, T-Bass, we lost the 4 Super Bowls. Those were all outdoors.
The whole reason why they moved indoors is, I don't know why it was in the 80s, but the reason why they didn't go back outdoors was because they needed the public money in order to build the stadium. That public money was only going to be given to them if they built an indoor stadium so they could host events year round, like the Final Four, like the Super Bowl.
That was done for
car shows, monster truck rallies. Like, that's why.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? They paid off a $1 billion stadium in, I think it was 8 or 9 years on a 30-year loan. Pretty impressive. Impressive. But, excuse me, my throat. JJ McCarthy will not play this year. He did set an NFL first, Dave. I don't know if you know this. JJ McCarthy is the first rookie quarterback drafted in round 1 to miss his entire rookie season due to injury. Other players have missed their entire rookie seasons, but have never missed it due to injury. Guys like Jim Kelly, who went to the USFL, Ken O'Brien just never played. Those types of players have missed their entire rookie seasons, but they've never done it because of injury. JJ McCarthy will now be the first to miss their entire rookie season due to injury. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. Joe Burrow tore his ACL 10 games into his rookie year in 2020. And Anthony Richardson last year, after 4 games, tore his shoulder and missed the rest of the year. And is still viewed upon as one of the brightest young stars in the National Football League. And we'll see if he can live up to that, because that's still a question mark. And I don't think it's really going to hinder JJ McCarthy at all. Now, here's where I do worry. He can't do any like footwork drills or work on his mechanics for months. He's going to be off of his feet completely for 4 to 6 weeks. He probably won't be allowed to drop back at all for, my guess, is 4 to 5 months. All that work that they did to try and work on his mechanics, I'm not going to say it's officially gone out the window, but I don't think he was at a point of muscle memory, which means that when he starts back up, it could be a little bit of a challenge. He may have regressed in that area. So that part worries me. But what it does do is 2 things. One, it gives Sam Darnold, like, it takes a monkey off his back. He's not going to have to panic anytime he makes a mistake, anytime the Vikings lose a game, that he may lose his job. It's his job now. Jaron Hall's not taking it from him. Nick Mullins is not taking it from him. Now, what you can have is JJ McCarthy learning how to game plan every single week, helping with the install, learning how to watch film with these guys. All of that's going to matter here, Dave. All of that's going to make an impact on his career.
Getting the language translation down from what he knew in college to now what KOC calls.
And you know what they're going to do? He's going to have the headset that Sam Darnold also has in his helmet, and he's going to be able to hear every single play call. And he's going to get used to the cadence of Kevin O'Connell. He's going to get used to how O'Connell likes to speak to his quarterbacks in the helmet. David, I don't know that David makes a comment that's he says, come on, man, 5 months, no drop back. I think you're exaggerating or flat out wrong. The average healing time for this injury is 4 to 6 weeks. Sorry, 4 to 6 months. You are off.
For an NFL player, for a normal human being, it's 6 to 9 months.
Yep, and I think that's different because the way NFL players will attack rehab, but they could also make it 9 months and just be like, take your time and do this thing slow, because that was the whole point of his development plan. So he's going to be off of his feet and not be able to put pressure on it for a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks. So you have a month and a half where he's not even going to have any weight on the knee. Then you're going to slowly ease back. He's probably going to be in a boot, and he's probably going to like slowly add that portion back into his recovery. And then he's going to start doing like walking and strength training with his legs and all that. And then the lateral movement stuff is going to come a lot later. So David, when I say 5 months no drop back, I'm taking a guess. It'll probably be like closer to 3, somewhere between 3 to 5 months is when he's going to be able to start dropping back. And when you're trying to make that kind of change, that's why I worry a little bit. And there could be some regression there. That doesn't mean it's a major red flag. That doesn't mean he's never going to be able to figure out those mechanical things. It just means it'll take a little longer. And I think it's fair to have that worry, but it also doesn't mean it's he's a bust or anything like that. I saw a couple people say, hey, he already had questions coming in and now he's going to be out the whole year. Like, I'm not on that train.
No. This will completely heal and he'll be able to do everything he's supposed to. I don't know why people are worried that he's totally bust. This is a fixable injury. That's why he had the full repair done. He'll be fine. He'll be back to 100% by the time we roll around next summer. In the spring, he'll be 100%. The deal is
more than likely, yes.
The deal is he's got to, and I forgot to say yesterday, I was on crutches for the first week. But he's got to leave pressure off that, give it time to heal, and then he'll be in a brace, and then he slowly, builds back up, and then he'll do everything normal, build up the muscle strength again, because it will not atrophy, but it will weaken compared to his left leg. And from there, he can move. Now, what he can't do for a while is twist the knee, right? Where you plant that foot and you drive and you twist. He cannot do that for a while because he's going to feel it if that's the case. He's got to let that go until it's completely healed, and then it'll be fine. I'm not worried about him not, having any lasting effects from this. It's just that we lose a season without seeing him and the great development he had so far. That's what everybody was so excited about. And it's a shame, but next year he's only going to be 22. He's still going to be one of the youngest quarterbacks in the league. And we know we've got him locked in as our franchise quarterback. That's good news.
I don't think the injury changes anything about him being a franchise quarterback. I really don't. Obviously, I was a little bit lower on him coming into the draft because I had questions. And I'm going to be honest, he was answering a lot of those questions. And I wanted to give him a lot of credit because he needed to kind of show me a good amount of stuff. I had him as a mid-second round pick, and it wasn't because I didn't think his ceiling was super high. I thought the floor was a little questionable because of some of the inconsistencies I had seen on tape. And he was really answering a lot of those questions in a positive way. And, he deserves credit for that. And development is real. And that's why we on this show like to kind of evolve our opinions based on new information. And we're not afraid to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we were wrong. Maybe we were in a position where we got it wrong, and that's okay. We'll find out what the actual answer to that question is, because right now we don't know. But it was trending towards me being a little on the lower side, and you know what? I'm okay with that. I can live with that. That's the McCarthy stuff. We're gonna have obviously a lot more about it here long term, but let's move on. Let's talk about the Jordan Addison stuff, Dave, because Addison, poor guy, Jordan Addison goes up for a catch during joint practice. I think they were doing 7-on-7 drills, and comes down, grabs his leg, ends up getting carted off. And as everybody was going into a panic, I said, "Hey, relax. We don't know what the injury is. They will use the cart as a precaution." Jerry Tillery got the cart after getting a cut on his leg. It was a deep cut, but it was a cut. They will use the cart for a precaution more often than you realize. So people were like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, is he going to be out for the year? Tyrone Tracy just got an air cast the other day, and he's probably going to be back within like 6 weeks. Running back for the New York Giants.
Yeah,
always wait
for
for the
still
information
takes
to
you
come out.
the first, second, third week of the season out.
Sure, but it's not a fractured ankle, and you are out for the year. And I think that portion is, we just want to take a break, let the info come out. After practice, Kevin O'Connell will say, hey, we believe he's going to be fine. It's an ankle sprain. And he comes out in a walking boot and crutches, which is very normal for this type of injury. Even if it's a low ankle sprain, a lot of times you'll see guys in a walking boot right away. And then in a couple of days, they'll just be back at practice normally. So until we're told otherwise, everything seems to be okay on a long-term basis for Jordan Addison. And I think that's good news. T-Bass, I appreciate the kind words, but honest assessment, I get what you're saying, but I think a lot of people are giving their honest assessment. The one thing about watching film is it's an art, and Dave knows all about art. Art is such a fluid concept. Anything can be art. You can use a multitude of styles and they could be considered like the same grade. And you can look at the same piece and come with 5 different descriptions of it. Like Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. You could tell me that there's a bunch of different ways to talk about what that piece means or what you take from it. And I think film is the same way. I don't think there were many disingenuous analysts, especially with the top guys. Like Thor was the highest on JJ McCarthy of anybody. I don't think any of that was him being dishonest or disingenuous. I think he really believed everything, and he had data to back it up. I didn't think the data was as concrete, and I didn't think the film was as good as he believed it was, so I was lower. But I don't think that makes him dishonest. And I only use Thor because everybody's talked about me and Thor having completely different, viewpoints on the quarterbacks, which is fine. One of us is going to be right. One of us is going to be wrong on each of these individual players. Like, we were both lower on Dallas Turner. And it looks like we may be proven wrong because he got in the perfect fit. And he seems to really be taking to coaching very well, which is tremendous. And I'm okay being wrong there because he's a Minnesota Viking baby. But I don't
Chris
think
is
you're
right.
going to
It's
see
all
many.
in the context of what you deem as quality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's across life. What you think is good.
Yeah.
Some people may think, a cheap pizza that costs you $6 is good, and others think one that costs you, that's a specialty in a brick oven and all that sort of thing is better.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in the context.
And good is relevant too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, I love Totino's pizzas. I also admit that they are not quality. They're just good. It's like eating Pop-Tarts. Nobody thinks Pop-Tarts are a high-quality cuisine. Pop-Tarts rock. I love Pop-Tarts. They could be a sponsor. I love your Pop-Tarts bowl, by the way. But that's where some of the context comes in. We're getting off the rails, but this is why we love our live chat. And join us every single Monday and Wednesday night. We love to be able to kind of interact with everybody in the chat, and it makes for a more fun show.
Mhm.
And we really appreciate you guys for joining me. And 107 people watching live right now. Thank you. Make sure you like the video, help us spread it around, help the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel, ring the bell to get those video notifications because we're trying out the 6:30 thing right now. And when we go live for breaking news, you won't want to miss it. So, Addison, look, if he's out for any extended period of time, it's brutal for the Vikings. Jalen Naylor is really coming into his own. It's like a third option, or once Hawkinson comes back, a fourth option. He's not a second option. He's just not. And that's not even insulting. He's just not at a level where you'd feel comfortable with him as a second option. And missing Addison for that length of time would really, really stink. So hopefully that they're able to get him back by week one. Week one being the 8th of September, which I believe is 3.5 weeks away. Yeah, that sounds about right. 3.5 weeks away. And I think you can come back from a high ankle sprain in that kind of time. Likely missing at least a game would probably be my guess. We'll see what the actual diagnosis is. We'll see how high of a degree that ankle sprain is. But right now, it just sucks. It sucks that we're having to deal with this. And then Thayer Thomas went down too. It got so physical out there that the Vikings ended up talking to Jim Schwartz. And Dave, listen to this quote. I don't know if you end up seeing this. One Cleveland player just yelled at the. Yep, but while that happened or afterwards, one Cleveland player just yelled at the Vikings offense, "Y'all can't catch a cold, man." They were struggling. The offense was struggling, but the defense absolutely whipped the Browns' butt during 11-on-11 drills. Big Rail and Dad, thank you. I'll get to Nahshon Wright because that's a really interesting point. We're gonna finish up the Addison stuff real quick, and then we'll talk about him because I think that's he's an interesting one. Yeah, we'll kind of find out what the news is with Addison. But Nahshon Wright, I believe he's practicing. I did not hear anything about him during these joint practices. I'm sure once the beat writers that are there write their articles, we'll kind of get a sense of how everybody was and stuff that wasn't tweeted, because you always get some interesting nuggets of stuff that wasn't just put on social media. Because look, their job is to report, but their job isn't necessarily to just get Twitter likes and Twitter engagement. It's about growing and developing your brand as a journalist. And a lot of that has to do with the writing that you have. So they're taking notes and they're saving stuff for their columns. Because if you tweet everything, you're not going to have, why is anybody going to want to read your column? You know what I mean? So I'm interested to kind of see what we got. But Nahshon Wright, somebody said that he's kind of like their answer to the loss of Kyrie Jackson. And I think there's some truth to that, but there's also some truth not to that, because Jackson was like a tremendously better athlete than Nahshon Wright. But what Wright does bring you, he's 6'4 and a quarter, 185 pounds, a shade under 33-inch arms. He's long, he's tall, and he's going to get in passing lanes. He's going to be able to make an impact. What he can't do is turn. He turns, Dave, like a semi-truck. And that's going to be a really big hindrance to him making an impact. Now, if you're going to turn like a semi-truck, you're probably just going to be in zone coverage. And the Vikings played a lot of zone with their zero blitz looks last year. So maybe that's not the worst thing in the world, where he's going to come in and play a lot of zone for this team. The Cowboys also drafted Israel Mukuamu, who is also 6'4", but he's nearly 200, 205 pounds. He's a bigger guy. So they liked in that Dan Quinn scheme the ability to have these long defenders to be able to clog passing lanes and create issues. The idea of getting Nahshon Wright was to honestly get rid of Andrew Booth Jr. and bring in a guy who could maybe make your roster, because Wright wasn't going to make the Cowboys roster. Booth wasn't going to make our roster. So let's see if we can get guys to make our own roster with a 1-for-1 swap. It also, Dave, happened to be the first ever swap for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. First player-for-player trade that he has made. So noteworthy in itself. But that's kind of the thing with Nahshon, right? He's only played in, I believe, 32 games throughout the course of his short career. He was a third-round pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, known by most of the NFL draft community for being overdrafted by 208 spots on the consensus board. He ranked 307th and was picked 99th overall. A lot of people just did not like the athleticism. Historically low agility scores. Historically low. And he's got the height and the length. He's got decent enough straight line speed, but his jumps and agility scores were just really bad. And that's going to hinder you a lot as a cornerback. So, Dave, let's kind of talk a few more things about practice, and then I think we may save a lot of the Sam Darnold talk for next week, but I at least wanted to kind of talk about him a little bit. One of the things that stood out from practice, from kind of reading the tea leaves, Christian Darrisaw raved about Myles Garrett. And I like joint practices because it gives players an opportunity to play against somebody other than the guy that they sit in the room with every day. And you can build up rivalries. You can build up calluses with those kind of guys, but you're going against the same players every single day. Dave, why would I want to go up against the same guy when come the NFL season, I'm not? I think that's a big factor here. And here's what he said about Myles Garrett. He's special, one of one. I haven't gone against nothing like that before. The things he's capable of doing, he uses all his tools in his bag. Now, remember, the Vikings played the Browns in 2021, but Darrisaw didn't play in that game because that game was week 3. And Darrisaw was still healing from that second hernia surgery. So he has never really gotten to face Myles Garrett. Seeing Darrisaw go up against this kind of guy, I think is a great thing. Why is it a great thing? Because it helps him get better. Like, it's okay if Darrisaw gets his butt whipped by the best pass rusher we've seen potentially since Reggie White. Why? Because he's going to get better from it. He's going to say, oh, Myles Garrett is just the freakiest athlete on the field, and he has the best technical prowess among edge rushers. All right, well, how do I stop him? And then guess what? He gets whipped a few times, and then he starts to be like, oh, okay, so he's going to do this. I can get him. And then he starts winning a couple here and there. And then he starts becoming even. And that's how you get somebody who could potentially be the best left tackle in football, which is the trajectory that Darrisaw is on. There are guys in front of him. Trent Williams, Laramie Tunsil. I'd say those are the only two guaranteed ahead of him. You have Tristan Wirfs, who's starting to really get his bearings at left tackle after being a right tackle for 3 years. He was only a left tackle 1 year. So you have Tristan Wirfs, Jordan Mailata. Those are two guys that are maybe ahead of him, but it's not a 100% guarantee. Daniel, you just said we lost Addison for the season. Are you sure? Where are you seeing that? Because that's not any of the information that we have. If you got it from somewhere, please share the link, because I'm looking on social media. I don't see it. I haven't heard it from any of the people I talk to, but I would. Oh, you're just messing around. Okay. That is a whole different story. All right. Couple more little tidbits from practice. Jalen Naylor continues to look good. He was the first highlight that the Vikings sent out. He's just looking really good, especially running those dig routes. He's able to create that quickness, get that quick separation right away, and then make those breaks and continue to create it because he's got speed. I think that's awesome. The physicality was super intense, as we mentioned. And it sounds like the Vikings had a good joint practice other than, the injuries. But the injuries, you can only do so much. Dave, anything from you, anything that you noticed kind of following along on social media with joint practices, anything that you thought, hey, anything stood out to you?
Other than the defense played exceptionally well. The Cleveland Browns offense couldn't get anything going. They had like 5 sets, and only one of them did they advance worth a damn. They were studs today, stopping them all over the place. The offense, not so good. But hey, it is what it is. I am seeing a tweet showing when Addison's injury happened, the defender landed on his ankle.
Oh, okay.
Is how his happened. Landed on the outside of his ankle after the catch.
Yeah.
So that tells you what direction it bent. So it's going to be sprained on the inside of his ankle.
Mm-hmm.
But
hey, you know what? It could be worse. It could be a lot worse. And hopefully it's just an ankle sprain and they're able to get him back really quick.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Last but not least, Dave, I'm going to try and get a special guest on next week to have a conversation about Sam Darnold, because the big thing with Sam Darnold is, well, he's got all the talent, but he's never been able to put it together. And the one intriguing thing that I see here is that I think the J.J. McCarthy injury helps him. It takes one level of stress off of him. It takes pressure off of him. He doesn't have to worry about throwing an interception and getting pulled for J.J. McCarthy. He doesn't have to worry about having a bad game and losing his job. He can go out there and play. This is his team now. The 2024 Vikings are Sam Darnold's team. And he would have to crater, in my opinion, or play so well and the Vikings end up like 0-7 to where a team wants to trade for him and you make the trade. I think those things are going to help him. He can just play football. And if you've been kind of paying attention to a lot of my training camp coverage, if you've been to practice and you've been to practice multiple times, you can see growth and development. You can see chemistry building with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. You can see him feel more comfortable with the offense. There's all these factors, and it's just great, great, great to see. I can't wait to see Sam Darnold try to light things up with the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know if Sam Darnold is going to actually be good. He could be. And we talked about it in depth a couple months ago. What if he's really, really, really good? How do the Vikings handle that? And it could be a 2004 San Diego Chargers with Drew Brees and Phillip Rivers. But if Sam Darnold just... The what?
I was going to say, the 33rd team Twitter account put out a tweet today saying, for the Sam Darnold truthers out there, Sam went 7-6 with the Jets in 2019 with Jamison Crowder as his number 1 wide receiver. Obviously, Justin Jefferson's a little bit higher quality number 1 wide receiver. He started out 3-0 with the Panthers in 2021 before Christian McCaffrey got hurt. He went 4-2 with the Panthers in 2022 after replacing Baker, who went 1-5. DJ Moore, Robbie the Chosen Anderson had 1,000-yard seasons with him. So, do I expect 1,000-yard seasons out of Justin Jefferson and hopefully Jordan Addison? Absolutely. And I think Sam Darnold's, that's well within his capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
But there is some good to Sam.
There is. There's arm talent. The one thing that really makes it intriguing for potential renaissance, like Geno Smith, is the fact that Sam Darnold just turned 27 years old. I think his birthday might be today or tomorrow. Let's find out. Oh, no, it was back in June. I knew it was the summer. So June 5th, he turned 27 years old. and he's in his 7th season in the National Football League. So he's still in his athletic prime. And coming out of USC, I still believe he was drafted because he had a great Rose Bowl game in his redshirt freshman year against Penn State. January 1st, 2017. I remember that game. I was sitting in a bar in Maple Grove with my best friend and his now wife 6 days before their wedding, having happy hour. And he played so well in that game. They were either down 21 or 28 points that it propelled him to being a top 3 pick. But he was never able to put it together in college. He was always an idea. The idea being, if you max this guy out, he could be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL because he has that type of arm talent. And when you watch the film in the NFL, it's not consistent, but you'll see glimpses of him just making absurd plays. There's one play with the New York Jets where he's rolling out to his left, throws across his body, fires a bullet between defenders, and hits a guy in stride for a touchdown. It's a play that if Pat Mahomes or Josh Allen made it, you would have seen it 50 times. But Sam Darnold made it, and Darnold's never been that good. He has a play against for the 49ers last year where he does that, but he more like hits touch about 10 yards down the field. Good play. Like, he has arm talent. He has the ability to do things. And I think because he has that ability, if you can extract it and get it consistent, then I think you're looking at a potential winner for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I'll also say the Vikings didn't have what's the word? They didn't lose a lot on offense when Kirk Cousins went down. And I don't mean that as an insult to Kirk. I meant like Justin Jefferson's splits with and without Kirk Cousins weren't affected. They were still putting up a bunch of yards. They were putting up the points, but they were able to move down the field and stay competitive in every single game that they played. Now that you have a constant, I mean, Darnold is arguably better than all of those quarterbacks that played. Why can't you win 8, 9, 10, 11 games? Why not? Why not? I'm not saying he's going to, but I'm saying it's a real possibility that he leads this team to a playoff run. We'll find out. Couple things. Grandizer 12 talking about Dave shaving off his beard. I think you'd have to tell Dave that he had like skin cancer underneath and that medically he was forced to. I don't think you're getting him to shave his beard. Who backs up Darnold? I think it'll be Nick Mullins. Mullins is now the QB2. Jaren Hall would have to take the job from Mullins, and I don't think that's very likely, especially after the performance he had against the Raiders. If he had played really well against the Raiders, I think you have a different story. But that's not the case here. If you have to play a backup quarterback, though, it's not a good thing. Daniel says, Tyler gets drunk alive if we make the playoffs. Look, I'm a professional. Who are we kidding? I would absolutely host a live stream and just start pounding Busch Lights. Not a sponsor, but could be. If you know an Anheuser-Busch rep, get me in contact. I would love to be sponsored by Busch Light. And then we can maybe use Busch Light mash to have a Dave-centric whiskey made, because that would be cool. Yeah, the Vikings are in an interesting spot. We're going to have a lot more about it. We're going to learn a lot more about this team tomorrow during joint practice. We're going to learn a lot more about this team on Saturday, especially the depth players. I can't wait to see some of these depth players in action again, because they are playing well. Guys like Jalen Redmond. Hats off to Jalen Redmond. Really doing a lot of the dirty work during the game against the Las Vegas Raiders. Awesome stuff. Absolutely awesome stuff. Dave, anything else you got for the people here?
No, this has helped me get over the emotions of the day, because I was up and down and up and down, and the balloon, out went the air, and I was a little bit angry over that, but it is what it is. It's going to be okay. It's always going to be okay. The sun will come up tomorrow, as some young redheaded girl used to sing. But,
bet your bottom dollar.
Yeah, but it is what it is. It's being a Minnesota Vikings fan. We may be some of the toughest fans in the league because of it. Thick skins.
Yep. We got thick skin, and we're going to be ready for pretty much anything that gets thrown at us because we know if something good is happening, something bad is about to. That is going to be our show tonight. We're going to be back next week with the Real Forno Show talking about this. We're going to be here live Saturday after the game talking about the Minnesota Vikings versus the Cleveland Browns. 2 All Bloggers Sunday afternoon. This is where you're going to want that notification bell on. 2 All Bloggers has gone anywhere from 1 Central to 5 Central start time. And with how things are going, you just never know when they're going to be live. And that's a chat that you want to be in, just like tonight's. And we're potentially going to have even more on the podcast side. So you're going to want to subscribe. Dave will have Who Will Be King posted as a podcast on Friday. And
yeah, we record tomorrow. We'll be live over on Bleachers to Speakers, the Lions representative. Now, there's another team that's dealing with injuries as well.
Good.
Out of the 4. But, yes. So, it's going to be an interesting show tomorrow. Obviously, mine is the big deflation. Chicago's going to be talking about their savior. We'll talk about Green Bay and the whatever's screwed up there or across there over in that city, which there's quite a bit.
Yep.
But anyways, should be fun.
Yep. And we're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to have the best Vikings audio video content in the world, self-proclaimed. 2 All Bloggers starting at 5 a.m. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, I'm Tyler. He's Dave. That's the show. SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!